Hi there. I previously reviewed the book Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. In fact, I reviewed the series, the Smiley series, which comprises the original book, then Honourable Schoolboy, and Smiley's People. Then there are mentions of Smiley in some other books, but they're the main. The trilogy is the main thread of the Smiley story. What I'd like to talk about today is how that has been brought to the screen, both the small screen and the big screen. So it came on TV first as an adaptation over about 7 hours, which, given the material, is probably what was needed to tell the story, because it's a very complicated story. So, in essence, the head of the Secret Service, which is known as the Circus because of its headquarters in Cambridge Circus in London, in a very odd-shaped building, which is actually the one shown in the TV series, who's known as Control, and who has been in charge for many years and has lived his cover. In fact, his wife thinks he works for the National Coal Board. And he had become suspicious of several of his leading officers who had suddenly produced a source from within the Soviet target who was providing very high-grade intelligence over a whole range of topics and departments. And this source was known as Merlin. So these suspicions were crystallized when he gets the opportunity to gain a defector from a high-rank military guy from Czechoslovakia. So he dispatches somebody who's not within the London, the headquarters setup, Jim Prideaux, who runs a section called Scalp Hunters, which is the kind of active measures department. And he briefs him and gives him code names for the names of the suspected guys: Tinker Tailor, Soldier, and they don't use Sailor because it rhymes with Tailor, so Rich Man. So Prideaux goes off. The TV series shows him in the Czech capital, checking for surveillance. It's very well done. The tradecraft's excellent. He meets a link man and goes to meet this defecting general, and it's an ambush. He tries to escape, but he's shot and captured. This causes Control to be sacked, and Smiley resigns in protest and sympathy. So the action then shifts. Really, that's the background story. The TV series really opens with a year or two later, and Smiley is now out of the service, and he's suddenly, when he gets home to a Chelsea flat, one of his old proteges, Peter Gillam, is waiting for him, and Gwilym has actually succeeded Jim Prideaux running the Scalp Hunters section. And he tells him that Lacan, who's a cabinet official in charge of the intelligence community, wants to meet him. And there is a guy who's been missing, an officer from the Scalp Hunters called Ricky Tarr, who they thought had possibly defected and has suddenly turned up with a very interesting story to tell about a mole within the Secret Service. There's some flashbacks with that, how he got this information of a female Soviet officer, and she was captured and tortured and so on. So Smiley realizes that Control's suspicions were right, and he then embarks on his own mole hunt using various of his irregulars. Gwilym is co-opted, and he has to go into circus headquarters and look in certain files and so on. And the story, various characters relate their part of the story. Sam Collins, who was the duty officer when Operation Testify, which was the Checo operation, goes down. They then locate Jim Prideaux, who has been resettled in the United Kingdom on some sort of swap, and is now a schoolmaster at a public school. And he's still suffering from the bullet wounds in his back. And Smiley debriefs him, and he starts putting bits of the puzzle into place. It's all very, very well done. It's like, in some ways, a detective story and a spy story interwoven. And some very, very good scenes accompany that part. And then Smiley uses Ricky Tarr as a kind of bait to draw out the mole. And I won't spoil the story in case you haven't read the book or seen it, but it's a really, really great climax to the story. So very intricate, and I remember at the time it was being shown. Terry Wogan on his radio program used to talk about it and try to see if anyone understood what was going on, and he made a running joke about it. But having read the book, I did understand it. Okay, so the characters in the TV, Judge Smiley was played by Alec Guinness, and he was so spot on that John le Carré said that his subsequent writing about Smiley was actually based on Alec Guinness. So he captured the part so well. And what he had to portray was what John le Carré had put in Smiley's background in the book and in his character. He had to portray that just by acting. So Smiley was a guy who had looks like a civil servant, very self-effacing, but he had run networks in Germany during the Nazi era, during World War II, very successfully, facing the Gestapo coming through the door at any minute. And he was in the position where people less clever than him always seemed to rise to the top, and he never got his just desserts. Also, his wife, who was from aristocratic stock, was very, very unfaithful, and it was a very widely known fact. And so he was also he was patriotic to the English ideal rather than jingoistic patriotism. He saw our faults, but he nevertheless saw that the Soviets, for example, certainly weren't the answer. So Alec Guinness had to portray all this, and he did it very, very well. It was masterful performance. Other actors in it, Peter Gwilym was Michael Jaston, who had previously played Quiller in the series about the secret agent. So he played kind of an upper class guy, but with a steel core. Did that well. So you had Ian Richardson played Bill Hayden. Ian Richardson, one of the really top actors, and he played politicians very, very well in various series. Jim Prideaux was Ian Bannon, and I thought he did it remarkably well, playing the pain and realizing that he'd been betrayed rather than it being a mistake by Control. Ricky Tarr was Huel Bennett. Did a good job there. And Bernard Hepton played Toby Esterhazy. Toby Esterhazy was in charge of the Lamplighters section, which is the surveillance section, and couriers and so on. Who's of Hungarian descent. He was found as a homeless kid in Hungary and brought into the circus. And Bernard Hepton played the characters quite strongly described in the book, on the books, and Benedict Cumberbatch had him off to a T. The whole atmosphere of the Secret Service was very, very well evoked. It was a painstaking series where you were allowed to really get to grips with the intricacies of the plot. The locations were good. As I say, they used Cambridge Circus for the headquarters and so on. Oxford comes into it. Terrific series, and I recommend it. I watched it a few times, and it's brilliant, totally brilliant. The movie has a very, very strong cast, but it suffers. It suffers by comparison, but it suffers in its scope as well, because they tried to shoehorn a story that took 7 hours on the TV into the length of a normal movie, 1.5 hours or whatever, 1:45. And obviously they have to cut stuff out. But what they've actually done is add stuff that is totally irrelevant. For example, they've got a scene where Smiley is swimming in a pond in the park. Now, it's not in the book, and it's not in the movie, and it's not in his character. He doesn't take any exercise at all. So why you would spend time doing that, I don't know. Also, there's a Christmas party at Circus headquarters, which gives you the opportunity to watch people exchanging glances at each other, and you get to realise a love triangle has taken place, but we knew that already just from some of the exposition that's already gone on. So Gary Oldman played George Smiley, and obviously he had massive shoes to fill, and he did a good job, unless you've actually seen the TV series. Then Jim Prideaux was played by one of my favourite actors, Mark Strong, and I think he's actually the best thing in it. Benedict Cumberbatch plays the Peter Gwilym role, and I don't think he quite got the role. They made him homosexual, and that took up some of the plot for some reason. I don't know why. And he, I don't think he really gripped the part at all, in my opinion. Although, I did enjoy him in Sherlock. Stevie Graham, who is certainly in my top 5 actors, is miscast in it. He plays a composite character based on both Sam Collins and Jerry Westerby, and he sticks out like a sore thumb, really, in the 1970s Secret Service, in my opinion. So it's not a bad film, and if you're not going to watch the TV series, then it's okay. But I would strongly suggest, if you enjoyed the book, watch the TV series. Even if you haven't read the book, watch the TV series. It's a masterpiece of TV. And also, they filmed Smiley's People with Alec Guinness as well. They didn't have Michael Jaston for that. But the chap who replaced him, Michael, I can't remember his name offhand, was very good. a lot of the same cast though. So Smiley's people and Tinker Tailor, really good TV. Of the kind that the BBC does very, very well, and I hope they continue to make such strong programmes.